Okay, so this first one, which equation represents the line that is perpendicular to the graph of 4x plus 3y equals 9 and passes through negative 2, 3? First off, what do parallel line, or excuse me, perpendicular lines look like?
Lines are intersect.
Sorry, let me rephrase. What do perpendicular lines look like? They intersect at a 90-degree angle.
That's
Sorry.
parallel.
I had already said parallel. And these are perpendicular.
That's what we did.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to find a line that, among these options, looks like this with that line, but also goes through negative 2, 3. Now, the work to get this question answered is pretty easy, honestly, but it's kind of hard to remember to do, and Desmos makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to pull up Desmos. The first thing I'm going to do is type in the line 4x plus 3y equals 9, and then I'm going to type in this ordered pair. So it went ahead and plotted that line and that point for me, and now I can just go through the options and say, hey, which one looks like it's going to be perpendicular and go through that point? So A is 3x minus 4y equals negative 18. Hey, that looks pretty good. All of the other options, if I type them in, 3x plus 4y equals positive 18, it doesn't go through that point, and it's not even parallel or perpendicular. It's just nothing. So that was B. Option C, 3x minus 4y equals negative 6. Looks perpendicular, but doesn't go through that point correctly, so it's not option C. And then 3x plus 4y equals 6. It goes through the point, but it's not perpendicular. So the answer has to be A. Fun fact, the reason I said that this one is really easy to do without doing any math is because anytime you've got an equation where the line is written in this format, instead of being written like y equals mx plus b, it's written like this. This is called standard form. A perpendicular line is going to have these two numbers switched and the sign in the middle switched. So I knew from the start it should have looked like 3x minus 4y, and A was the only answer that even had that. Questions on number 21? Okay, number 22. A club began with 3 members. Each month, each member brought 1 new member. Which function can be used to determine the number of members X months after the club began? I'm going to draw a little diagram for this. So I've got my 3 people. So it started, so there was 0 months in with 3 people. But 1 month later, each of those people brings a buddy. Now there's 6 people in the club. The second month, each of those 6 people brings a buddy. So this original person brings another buddy, and so does this person. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. If I were to draw again, each of these people bringing another person, it's a lot of people. We're up to 3 months in, there are 24 people. What does it look like is happening with the y values here? They're growing how? They're doubling. 3 times 2 is 6, times 2 is 12, times 2 is 24. So if we're looking at which function works best here, because it starts at 3 and then multiplies by 2 over and over and over again? The answer that we're looking for is option D. Option D, that 3 up front is your starting value. I'll answer your question in just a second. And this 2 with the exponent, that is your multiplier. Yes, these were all calculator active. So, A and B both give you a linear function. This one says that it started with 3 members and then just 2 new people show up every month. This one said it started with 1 member and then 3 new people show up every month. This one says it started with 1.5 people, which is kind of weird, and then doubles every month. So I don't know what happened with the 1.5 people. D is the option you're looking for. Now, if you're like, I don't know how to turn this table into this function, if you've got a table, you can go into Desmos and type in x1, y1, and try the y1 squiggly mx1 plus b, and y1 squiggly a times b to the x1, and it would tell you that D is the best option. Sound okay? But anytime you're multiplying repeatedly, it's going to be an exponential, so it was definitely between these two. Yeah, and option was D. 23, every 10 years, the U.S. Census counts how many people are living in towns across the United States. In 1950, showed that there were 5,000 people living in Auckland and 1,000 people living in Zionville. The population of Auckland is predicted to increase by 5,000 every 10 years. There's a typo on this paper, but not on your quiz is. This third bullet point, the population of Zionville is predicted to double. So your quiz is was right, it's just this paper. If the predictions hold true, what will be the first census year that will show the population of Zionville is greater than the population of Auckland? So, I'm going to make a table. With the number of years and the population of Auckland and the population of Zionville. The 1950 census said that in Auckland there were 5,000 people and in Zionville there were 1,000 people. It tries to tell you a census happens every 10 years. So the next census after 1950 was 1960. In which case the population of Auckland would have increased by 5,000, so now we have 10,000. And the population of Zionville would have doubled, so we have 2,000. And then we'll keep adding 5,000 to Auckland and doubling Zionville until we see that Zionville has more people. So 1970, we've got 15,000 people in Auckland and 4,000 people in Zionville. 1980, we've got 20,000 people in Auckland and 8,000 people in Zionville. In 1990, there would be 25,000 people in Auckland and 16,000 people in Zionville. We're getting closer. And in the year 2000, we would have 30,000 people in Auckland and double 16,000 is 32,000 in Zionville. So the census year where Zionville takes over is the year 2000. Any questions on that, y'all? So anytime it's telling you to compare two things, making a table and just going step by step by step definitely helps organize your information. Am I okay to move on to 24? Okay, 24. Brock's Gym offers 2 different membership plans. Members of the Gold plan paid $10 per month for membership, and a one-time $200 fee. Members of the Silver plan don't have that upfront fee, but they have a larger monthly payment of $40 per month. What is the minimum number of months that a person should hold their Gold membership plan in order for it to be the better deal? So, the Gold plan has a really large down payment, but a much smaller monthly payment. The Silver plan doesn't have a down payment, but it's $40 a month. The question is, how long does it take for this $40 a month to catch up and outweigh the 200 plus 10 a month? So, I'm going to make a table. We're going to have the number of months, the Gold plan, and the Silver plan. So, month 0, I'm just going to go ahead and write 0 and 200 for the Gold plan and 0 for the Silver plan, because just to start, it's $200 for the Gold plan. 1 month in, the Gold plan only costs $10, so now you've paid $210 total. The Silver plan cost $40. Second month, we would have $220 for the Gold plan and $80 for the Silver plan, and keep going. If I count up, I get $230, $240, $250, $260, $270, and so on. Here, I get $120, $160, $200, $240, and $280. Oops. So, up until the 7th month, it looked like the Gold plan was more expensive. 200 was more than 0. More. The 7th month is when that plan switches, and now the Gold plan ends up being cheaper. The answer is 7 months. Any questions? All right. Number 25, Karen has 2 dogs. The larger dog weighs 1.4 pounds more than the smaller dog. The combined weight of the 2 dogs is 12.6 pounds. What is the weight in pounds of the smaller dog? Okay, so I've got 2 different variables here. The weight of the large dog and the weight of the small dog. I'm going to go ahead and label those. I'm going to call the large dog X and the small dog Y. Now, you can use L and S if you want, but I don't like using S because S looks like a 5 to me whenever I'm putting it into a little equation. And also, I'm going to make this a little bit easier on us here in a second. So, the large dog weighs 1.4 pounds more than the small dog. That tells me if I take the large dog and subtract the small dog's weight, I'm going to get 1.4. But combined, their weight is 12.6 pounds. So the large dog plus the small dog is 12.6. Now, this gives you a system of equations. A couple ways to solve it. You can solve it by substitution. This one, not set up for substitution. Elimination. This one is because the x's and y's are lined up. And when I add these lines together, I'm going to get 2x, the y's cancel out, equals 14. Divide both sides by 2. You get x is 7. Is the answer 7? No, because that is the large dog. Now, if the small dog is just 1.4 pounds lighter, subtract 7 minus 1.4, you get 5.6 pounds. The answer was 5.6. Can we make that a little bit easier? Yes. Can you guess how? Put it in Desmos. You don't have to do any of that solving. As long as you can write the 2 lines, you're good. figure those out. I'm going to type in that x minus y equals 1.4 and x plus y equals 12.6. Those two lines intersect at the ordered pair 7, 5.6. 7, the x value, is the weight of the large dog. 5.6, the y value, is the weight of the small dog. So as long as you know what your x and y stand for in that ordered pair, you get your answer almost immediately. Does that sound okay? Okay, moving on over to number 26. Which choice could be modeled by a linear function? So no math, just being able to know what a linear function describes and which of these best fits it. Any thoughts?
No, it's C.
It is B. The monthly cost Y to use a cell phone plan for X minutes at a rate of 4 cents per minute. So a couple of things. A linear function has a constant rate of change. Meaning you add or subtract the same amount each time. Now, two that I could immediately eliminate are option A and option D because they have percents. If you're dealing with a percent change, you're actually talking about an exponential function. That 4% interest compounded annually, let's say you have $10, 4% of that is 40 cents. Yeah. So you get that 40 cents, and then whenever you compound that annually, now you have $10.40. The annual interest of 4% is going to be a little bit more. Same thing down here, decaying at 30% each year. If I take 30% off of 100, I get 70. But when I take 30% off of 70, I take off 21, so that would be 49. Okay, these are not adding or subtracting the same amount each time. The height of a ball after bouncing X times, if it reaches 2/3, 2/3 is a percent in disguise. That's 66.6 repeating percent. And again, if it's only reaching 2/3 of its height will keep on decreasing, but not by the same amount each time. The thing about B that sticks out is it has a rate that does not change. Does that sound okay? So linear has a constant, unchanging rate. Speaking of rates, number 27, Oscar planted a tomato seed in his garden. Each day he recorded the height of the tomato plant. During which interval did the tomato plant grow the fastest? What would we be looking for the fastest rate of growth? What on this graph looks like the fastest growth? It is option C. What about day 8 to day 10 sticks out there for you? The points are further apart. Sounds good to me. The thing is that this section of line has the steepest rate of change. The steepest slope is the fastest change. Any questions on that, y'all? Number 28. The function a of n equals 3n minus 7 represents the value of the nth term in a sequence. When you see nth term, that's just a placeholder. It means first or second or third or fourth or fifth or whatever. What is the sum of the first and fifth terms of the sequence? Well, if I want the first term, I'm going to plug in 1. If I want the fifth term, I'm going to plug in 5. And I'm going to plug them in to this little formula right here. So A plug in a 1 equals 3 plug in a 1 minus 7. And then a of 5 is 3 times 5 minus 7. Everything after the equal sign is the math we need to do. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. So the first term in that sequence, which is just a list of numbers, is negative 4. Next one, 3 times 5 is 15. 15 minus 7 is 8. So the fifth term is 8. Altogether, what it wants us to do is find the sum. Negative 4 plus 8. The answer is 4. Because this function gives you the nth term in a sequence, and it wants to know the sum of the first and the fifth, just plug in 1 and just plug in 5, and then add those together. Okay, we're not too far from being done. Any questions before I flip over? Okay. Number 29. The length of a rectangle is 3/4 of its length. The perimeter of the rectangle is 420 feet. What is the length in feet of the rectangle? So I imagine whenever people were taking this test years ago when this was the actual EOC, they're like, 420, and then they kept working. Hopefully they got the right answer. So anytime it's talking about a shape, this is a classic case of draw it. Draw the shape. We've got a rectangle. And I know its length is longer than its width, so I'm going to draw it kind of like that. Now, I'm going to call the length L, but instead of calling the width W, is it okay if I write 3/4 L? Because the width is 3/4 of the length. Now, perimeter. That is the distance around a shape. So, the whole perimeter of being 420 means the length plus the width plus the other length, which is the same thing, plus the other width, which is the same thing, totals to 420. To make this one a little bit easier to solve by hand, instead of writing 3/4, I'm going to write 0.75. I'm going to say L plus 0.75 L plus another L plus another 0.75 L equals 420. Again, I changed it to a decimal just because I'm going to have to combine like terms here, and combining fractions that don't have the same denominator just takes an extra step there. Then we've got 1L plus 0.75L plus 1L plus 0.75L. When I combine all those like terms, I get 3.5L equals 420. Again, just combine all your like terms. And then, to solve for L, divide both sides by 3.5. At this point, you've got your calculator, so you can either type that into Desmos or on your handheld. 420 divided by 3.5 comes out to 120. Is my answer 120? Are you sure? It's asking what is the length. Well, I got the length. So the answer is 120. I don't have to worry about the width. Now, the width is not that hard. 3/4 of 120 is just 90. So this is a 120 by 90 rectangle, but 90 is not the answer. Any questions on number 29? Okay, we're almost done. Number 30. Two functions are shown below. F of x equals 3x squared plus 14x minus 5. G of x equals 11x plus 13. Select the points at which the graphs of the two functions intersect. Select all that apply. Okay, when two functions intersect, it means that the functions are equal to each other. So what I'm going to do here is set 3x squared plus 14x minus 5 equal to 11x plus 13. I'm going to do this the long way first, just so that we can practice solving by factoring. Then I'm going to show you how to make this easier in Desmos. First thing I'm going to do, if I'm going to solve by factoring, is get everything over to the left side. So I'm going to subtract 11x. I'm also going to subtract 13. (14x minus 11x is 3x. Negative 5 minus 13 is negative 18. Equals 0. It's in standard form equal to 0, so I can go ahead and solve by factoring. Whenever you go to solve by factoring, check and see if there's a GCF. It'll make your life a lot easier. 3, 3, and negative 18 can all be divided by 3. And by recognizing that and dividing this down to x squared plus x minus 6, we now don't have to factor by slide and divide. We can just factor. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to positive 1. That would be x plus 3 times x minus 2. From that, your two solutions would be x equals negative 3 and x equals positive 2. Well, the second option has an x value of negative 3, and the third option has an x value of positive 2, so it looks like it's going to be those two options. Now really I am kind of doing some sketchy math here, because I should have checked to see if I plug in negative 3, do I get negative 20? And if I plug in 2, do I get 35? But you do. But if it's talking about the intersection of two graphs, that's screaming, put them in Desmos. You put in Desmos, there's no factoring involved. You just have to be able to slide around a little bit. I'm not even going to type in the f of x and g of x. I'm just going to type in the 3x squared plus 14x minus 5 and the 11x plus 13. Now, you can click and drag to slide it around, or I always think it's easiest if you hold down Shift and scrunch down one of the axes to be able to see it more clearly. The intersections are negative 3, negative 20. That was our second option. And 235, that was our third option. So much easier than solving by factoring, right? Can I get a scale of 1 to 5 on how we're feeling? I mean, these are the trickiest of the tricky questions, but I hope you're picking up a couple of things that say like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, you got 3 hours, really up to 4 hours for this test. Standard test time is 3 hours, but you can have an extra hour if you need it. That is plenty of time to just play around with these questions in Desmos. See if you can find anything that makes the question make more sense to you. Do you have any questions for me? Okay.